So you can put a police at every corner in America, but you can't put a police officer in every heart. So the work that we are doing is hard work. That how do you, again, if somebody have a gun, that they will not use the gun.
Cities and states should be remembered for the hallmarks of their communities, not by the name of another shooting.
But as a faith leader, sometimes preachers get real quiet when it comes to gun violence.
I'm a 14-year-old that all I have in my heart is hate. All I have in my heart is revenge. So I decided with my friends that we were going to kill them as they killed my brother. But it was members of the faith community and the community in general that intervened in our lives.
The stigma that comes along with our Black and brown babies being murdered is unthought of. Even the hours after, when the actual detective called, his words still ring in my head. I will let you know if your son had anything to do with this. They don't care that they're re-traumatizing you over and over again.
So my goal, and the goal of the rabbis around the country that are part of Rabbis Against Gun Violence, and our responsibility here in our beloved city, is to stand in solidarity, recognizing that hate against one is a threat against all of us. Focus only on tribal trauma means that we leave each other behind and we forget, speaking from Jewish tradition, what it is to love your neighbor. And so we're out to make sure that we don't idolize the Second Amendment in violation of the Second Commandment.
So what I would just say for the mental health piece, what we have to be careful is that we don't convert this conversation into that when these events happen, it's mental health to blame, and that we don't pay attention to firearms.
This is a pandemic that has been happening before COVID was ever declared.
Right.
And it is increasing. And it's not just the 20 to the 29-year-olds. It's not just male, it's now females.
Yeah.
And it's increasing.
I'm here to tell you, we can't be silent. We have to preach from the scriptures about gun violence and never stop.
We cannot give up.
Right.
Because I believe that there are a lot of kids out there like me who, if there was the right intervention, would have made a different choice. And we have to find a way to reach those kids in the dark areas.
So I just want to encourage you all to continue to stay in these spaces, continue to ignite your faith, and know that you cannot quit. You cannot become desensitized, that you have to continue to show up at the scenes.
This is what we need to work on more than anything. Changing the minds, changing people's understandings of what gun violence is, what it can do to you, how it destroys families, communities, nations.
The best thing about that part of my journey was my church. They came through.
I want to tell you as faith leaders that you are critical to God's work, critical to his continuum in creating a plan for mankind. You are literally God's boots on the ground.
And good morning to everyone, and it is good to be with all of you. And thank you all for joining us again for the National Faith Leaders Gun Violence Prevention Summit. This is a National Faith Leaders Gun Violence Prevention Summit that's working on resources, recognition, and the resurgence of religious leaders. And today, the summit is co-sponsored and co-convened by the New York City Mayor's Office of Faith-Based and Community Partnerships, along with the 6-7 Precinct Clergy Council, the God Squad, Clergy for Safe Leaders, and Faith Leaders for Ending Gun Violence, and a host of other partners that we have here today with us. So we're very grateful to have you. I'm Pastor Gilman Rose, and I will be your moderator today. And again, we have a great program for you. It's a time of learning, best practices. And so we have faith leaders from around the country, the US, and also too from the Caribbean as well, who's going to be joining us. So we have been really working across all platforms to really bring together the voice, the national voice of the faith community. We believe, and I believe strongly, that this group, Clergy for Safe Seated, which is a combination of multiple different faith organizations from across cities, is the largest group when it comes to dealing with gun violence. And so today, we're going to have a taste of that. Today, we're going to be working on the first half of the program. We'll hear from our Attorney General in New York City, New York State, Letitia James. We're going to hear from Reverend Al Sharpton, and then the Mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. And then we'll move to our faith leaders across the nation. We'll talk about the best practices, what they're seeing, how they're working, what is happening in their particular cities, because we do believe that cities should be safe. And so when you combine clergy to have safe cities, it's a combination that really produces public safety. So I'll open up with the president of the 6-7 Precinct Clergy Council, the God Squad, Pastor Richard Hines.
Thank you, Pastor Monrose, and good morning to everyone who is present on this call, on this National Faith Leaders Gun Violence Summit. We start off with prayer, and may I invite you to join me at this time. Dear Father, this is a day that you have made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, as we gather today for this National Faith Leaders Gun Violence Summit, we come before you with hopeful hearts. We know that our world is facing a crisis of gun violence, and we ask you for your guidance and wisdom as we gather here this morning to seek to address this issue. In this hour of sensitivity, O God, we pray for even the victims of gun violence and their families. We ask now that you comfort them and give them the strength to heal and to move forward. We even pray for those who perpetrate gun violence, that they may come to understand the gravity and the weight of their actions and seek a path for peace and reconciliation. We ask for your blessings upon all those in attendance this morning at this summit, representing cities across this country and other countries across the world. May our discussions, God, be fruitful and our actions be just. We pray you will help us to find solutions that honor the dignity of every human life and promote safety and security in our communities. And finally, God, we ask that you bless our nation and guide us as a people, guide our cities, guide us as faith leaders towards a future where gun violence is no longer a threat. We pray for peace. We pray for justice to prevail in all areas of our society. And while, God, I respect every other faith tradition, we offer this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. And thank you so much for that. And as we know for sure that as we have faith leaders from across the country in different areas, it is surely respected that we recognize all faiths that is on the line. Thank you so much, Pastor Hines, for setting the tone in prayer. We know for sure that with faith leaders, one of the biggest tools that we have is, of course, prayer and tapping into the spiritual help that we need. So today, again, we will hear from clergy and city officials whose goal in life work is really to reduce the violence that we have. In most cases, is even to end it. And we believe so. We believe so because the work that we have to do is very specific. We cannot police our way out of the violence that we have in the cities in which we serve. It has to be a collaborative effort with care violence teams, with faith-based organizations, with youth programs, you have social services. You have to have this safety net across the board. And we are working actively, again, with elected officials in these cities to make sure that we can have a collaborative effort when it comes to ending gun violence. So thank you all. If you can, if you all can change your at the end of your name, if you can tell us what city you're from. We totally delighted to have you on today. And so I will move to, if I can get the note of our first speaker. Could someone confirm? Oh, okay, so what I would say is that as we look at it, could someone just let me know when the next three speakers are in? Someone just tell me. As I was saying, again, when we look at gun violence, we have gun violence coupled with the loss of life have a real significant trauma on a lot of us, a lot of countries and cities. And one of the things that we dare to do is that we are saying to faith leaders that when we come to this platform of talking about faith leaders really working on gun violence, it's really comprehensive in the fact. And today you will see that from affordable housing to really having programs and within communities to really help to steer young people from the pathway of violence and moving them into an idea of being a productive citizen. And we know for sure that we have seen with strong clergy leadership, along with sharing the public safety by police, community, mothers and survivors of gun violence. When we look at social services, when we look at violence interrupters and those services, we can see that a combination of those type of areas can really put us into a place where we are making a dent on the violence in which we see in our communities. So a lot of these evidence-based and faith-based and clergy-led models will be discussed today, and showing exactly that even in New York City, that Mayor Eric Adams have continued to work with the faith community, specifically around this idea. And so we are going to have our first speaker. We'll have Reverend Al Sharpton, who will come on and he will have some comments to us. He's the president of the National Action Network and also host of MSNBC Politics Nation. And he's joining us this morning. And we're very delighted to have you on, Reverend Sharpton, and it's good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Reverend Sharpton.
Yeah, thank you. And let me say that I'm happy to join you and other faith leaders. I think that it is imperative that we understand that the way to deal with gun violence and the continuing problem that we're seeing that it causes in our communities is that we must be prepared to do what is necessary very publicly and without any fear. Our people around this city and around the country for that matter, but particularly around the city, need to see the faith leaders that would re-energize them in their faith and their fearlessness to stand up to this kind of behavior and this kind of trade that has almost made it acceptable and trendy to become a hoodlum and a thug. And we must not fear to push back against that. I am progressive on many issues. I fight on many issues. But the whole idea of acting as though that our communities based just on the social data must accept the fact that we're going to be hoodlum thugs and crooks because we have no other way. We cannot accept that. We must fight against that. And we have the platform to do it. So I wanted to come and encourage you to work with the mayor, to work with others around this gun violence. Yes, I think, and many of you know, I've done a lot of work through the years about police reform. But I also want to see communities that we are properly policed and we are properly protected. We cannot sit around and allow people that have no empathy or identity for people put us in a situation where we are justifying behavior like gun trade and gun shooting. Poverty is bad and must be eradicated, but it cannot justify people like, I'm picking up the papers in New York today, gun gangs and killings that's going on. And where are the people of God? Where are the people that God called us to be? Everyone in the Bible had to face the challenge of their time. God did not call Moses to do David's work. He called him to do his work in his time. God didn't call Jeremiah to do Solomon's work. He called his time. In our time, gun violence is a pertinent issue, and we must rise up and prove that God can use who he will and may in these times. I hope that we can all work together. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Shopman. Could you also mention about the national call that you're having tonight, leading to your conference in New York City? I think as faith leaders, we have close to 300 on from across the country. I think it's important for us to be in those spaces talking about gun violence specifically. So if you could tell us about the call that you have tonight.
National Action Network's national convention will be in New York at the Sheraton from April 12th to the 15th. Martin Luther King III co-chairs it with me. We have Tyler Perry coming, talking about how he is building out a cultural, phenomenal cultural institution. We have Magic Johnson, who's going to talk about, we had helped him get part of the rebuild contract in Kennedy Airport, and he has $2 billion in contracts they're looking to fill. He's going to do one day in the workshop there. Kerry Washington, the actress, of course, Vice President is coming to speak. So tonight is to invite all of the clergy to come. It's all free. I don't need registration dues. Our faith luncheon is free, but we need people to pre-register at nationalactionnetwork.net so we have the numbers that are prepared. But any of you are welcome. It's nationalactionnetwork.net. But you can call the toll-free number at 1-877-626-4651. This is our 32nd year. We started 32 years ago. I see one of the people that helped us start when nobody thought we'd be anything, Apostle Cecil Riley in Brooklyn. And we've been able to build national, but we're still New York based. We love a lot of New York based.
Thank you so much for that, and we really appreciate you. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you
for your time. God bless you. We'll see you again.
Right.
Thank you, Reverend Sharpton. And I think, again, it's very important for us to see nationally the work that is being done and the faith leaders rising to the occasion. So the first half, again, we'll hear from our partners, and then the second half, we will talk to faith leaders who are doing really work in their communities. The Attorney General at his James from New York City will be our next speaker. And if she is on. Could someone unmute and talk to me from the team? Is she on, yes or no?
Not yet.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so we're going to go to the seat of Rochester, Reverend Willie Lightfoot, who has joined us, and we're going to Rochester. Next up will be Pastor McCoy, Marcus McCoy from the Faith State Director of Equal Ground and the Senior Pastor of Greater Refuge Memorial Church, and Bishop Derek McCrae, Senior Pastor of the Experience Center Church in Orlando, Florida, who again is really working in Florida to deal, specifically Orlando, to deal with the issues of gun violence in that particular city. So the first up that we'll have is Reverend Willie Lightfoot. Then we'll have Pastor McCoy and Bishop McCrae. Hey, Pastor, how are you?
Hello, how are you, sir?
We're doing good. We're coming to Rochester soon. So talk to us about what you're doing in the city of Rochester.
So I want to say greetings and good morning to each and every one of you. I want to thank you, Pastor Monrose, for this opportunity to share briefly with all of you faith leaders and those who work in this space of gun violence and eradicating gun violence in our community, in our country, and in our local regions and areas. My name is Willie Lightfoot. I'm pastor of Prayer House Church of God by Faith, located in Rochester, New York. I am also a city councilman for the city of Rochester at large. I'm joined here with one of my senior deacons at my church, Deacon Holly Williams. Just grateful to be here to share with you some of the work that we're doing in Rochester, New York, like many of you are doing in your spaces. I am chairman of the Rock Against Gun Violence Coalition, where we work to educate, advocate, and eradicate around gun violence. Some of the things that we've done most recently, and something we're working on even as we speak, we're working with Brady National to present to our community first gun trace data report, so we can actually answer the decade-old question in our community of where are these guns coming from, tracking them, and then being able to hold individuals accountable for the spread and the crime to gun or manufacturing to crime gun that we're seeing happening within our community. So violence that we're seeing. So that's one of the things that we're currently very excited about finishing up this report. We're hosting a summit June 13th, Pastor Gill and his team, and hopefully many of you will be a part of this summit that we'll be doing in Rochester. And we're working very diligently with our people on the ground. Our mayor, I want to thank Mayor Evans for his diligent work, former Mayor Warren for helping us to get to this point with this gun trace data report. And we're working with that as well as many other anti-violence and different things that we're doing structurally to work within and partner and collaborate, not only with the clergy, but with other individuals who work in the space of gun violence and eradicating gun violence and violence within our community. So we're very excited about being a part of this summit. We're excited about linking hands and linking up with you individuals, learning best practices, sharing best practices, and things that we're doing here in Rochester. Rochester, as unfortunately some of our zip codes here, 14605, 14611, are the second and poorest zip codes in the state of New York, beating out some of the boroughs here in upstate New York. So we have tremendous issues as a result of poverty. Comes all of those byproducts of poverty, which violence is one of them. So we welcome your prayers, and we're glad to be partner with you in this work to eradicate gun violence in our state and in our country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and definitely we are going to be with you as well. And I hope that as you do your work, we all have some ideas and ideas about this for sure. So thank you again so much. We're going to go to Orlando, Florida. So we're going to have the double team of Pastor McCoy and also Bishop McCray to give us some best practices, what is happening in Orlando, Florida, dealing with the 9-year-old, of course, who was shot and killed, but also to progressive work that is being done by the faith community by both of you. Good morning to both of you, and welcome to the National Faith Leaders Summit on Gun Violence.
Thank you so much, Pastor, and good morning to everyone. I echo the sentiments of Pastor Lightfoot. Great to be a part of this network. Again, my name is Pastor Marcus McCoy. I serve as the State Faith Outreach Director for Equal Ground Education Fund, which is a civil rights organization, voting rights organization, excuse me, that handles a myriad of issues. Gun violence is one of the things that we are partnering with. I'm also senior pastor of the Greater Refuge Memorial Church in Orlando. I'm going to let our president of the African American Council of Christian Clergy and pastor of the Experience Christian Center, Bishop Derek L. McCray, kind of share with you some of the things that we are doing. Bishop, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Pastor McCoy. Thank you so much again for this platform, and glad to be here as well. Listen, a lot of things are happening, and it's no mystery about the fact that we've had some recent incidents in the Central Florida area that are pretty alarming to our communities. We had the shooting, of course, of the 9-year-old, also the law enforcement, also the journalist, and another young lady who lost her life as well here in the city. We immediately brought the community together, being our law enforcement, being our politicians, and also being our pastors. And we believe that's the plan for success moving forward, that we have to figure out how to unite all three forces, law enforcement, pastors, and politicians, coming together. And after we had our meeting there for our press conference, it also was followed by another meeting that we had where I had the opportunity to lead it, but I decided to defer it to our community leaders to lead it. And that was purposely done. I believe that we're living in a time now where the community wants to hear their own voice and see that we can also become supporters of the things that they're doing. And so we were able to come alongside them because we're looking to do very much three things. We're looking to build relationships, which is very, very necessary. We can't keep just spitting out policies. We can't just keep arresting individuals. We have to figure out, how do we build relationships? Those relationships will also take us into the homes. We also have to make sure we restore confidence. We have to make sure that individuals believe and know that we have their best interests in mind and that we are capable of bringing solutions. I found here in Pine Hills in Orlando that there's not a lot of confidence in our abilities to achieve. And so building those relationships is helping us to restore those confidence as well, to show individuals that we all have the common goal. And then the last thing that I really believe that we have to do is we have to make sure that we're developing plans. I think our communities have been victims of just protesting, and we have not been able to actually be involved in plans. We have to be those who not only make our voice known, but we have to have a destination to take our people. And so developing those plans, attacking issues from the mass shooting standpoints, also looking into the Citizens Task Force that our mayor here is re-implementing here in the Central Florida area, that is comprised of pastors, politicians, elected officials, and community leaders. All these individuals have to come together because this is not something that one in particular entity can solve. It has to be collective, and all parties have to recognize that we need all of the voices. So those are some of the things that we're doing here in the Central Florida area as we're working to attack these shootings that are taking place and gun violence that is happening within the Central Florida area.
And any way that we can help, sir, I think that we are here. The great work and the prophetic voice that you all serve in your community is very, very important. So we thank you all for your work again. And thank you again. So if you have any connections in the Orlando area, please connect with us, Clergy for Safe Cities. We put our contact in there. This Faith Summit is showing how cities are connecting with clergy on gun violence work. This is our part. This is our responsibility. And so the faith community is stepping forward and saying to states, to cities, to islands, to governments, to be able to, again, come to a place where the faith voice is specific to the work that we're going to do. Today, we're going to also be shared. Thank you so much for both of you again. Today, we are also going to share on the idea of even how faith communities are working on affordable housing. If you look at even in New York City, where I serve, the faith community itself, in terms of houses of worship, have more property and is one of the largest landowners in New York City. If you combine those, you can definitely see the work that we can do. We have just hit the mark of 300 faith leaders from around the country. And so we want to say that for the time that we have been doing this, this is now a record for us. 300 faith leaders and workers combined to be in the same space. So we want to thank you all for really sharing and really working. As soon as I get the note that our Attorney General from New York City, Tish James, will be on, I'll bring her to the stage, or the team can bring her to the stage. But we are going to go to East St. Louis, Illinois, and then we will hear from Rabbi Creditor too as well from New York. So we have Reverend Loretta Rice Barnes, who is really our great help and one of the best dressed clergy that I know anywhere this side of heaven, for sure. We thank you again so much for being with us, and God bless you. Good to see you.
Thank you, Pastor Monrose. It's very great to see you and to see the team and the partners that are here. And greetings to everybody. Pastor Loretta Rice Barnes. I am in the East St. Louis, Illinois. East St. Louis, Illinois. We say that because here in St. Louis, Missouri, we are only literally probably 30 seconds apart because of the bridge. And so right here where we are, every time when I start thinking about gun violence, it just comes to mind that a report was released not long ago that you're 27 more times likely to be killed in East St. Louis than any other US city per capita. We are about 18,000 people now, rapidly declining per the last census report that was released. I serve as executive director and founder of Metro East Organizing Coalition, also pastor of Empowerment of Grace, and developed my passion, I think, just around, number one, growing up in urban community, seeing dilapidated buildings and hearing gunshots ring out. Just over a year ago, my mom, they were in the house about 3 o'clock in the morning sleeping, and bullets started flying through their house. And so we're grateful nobody was killed. This work speaks to, there again, how I grew up and where I grew up. Thinking about my friend Mimi when I was in the 7th grade, 12 years old, laying in the casket, looking like she was 96 years old, and watching my friend David, who was shot in the head, laying on the ground with a tear rolling out of his eyes. He was taking his last breath. Gun violence is ripping through our communities. And what I have found is that oftentimes we don't always see clergy hitting the front lines. And so I'm so grateful to be connected and a partner with Clergy for Safe Cities, the God Squad, and the others, faith leaders in gun violence, because I think back to some time ago, back in the 60s, when we talk about civil rights, it was the church. The church was the centralized place where people went. And it is always the church, no matter what happens and how people say they feel about the church, that they return back to the church, whether it's to eulogize, marry, to Christian, to ordain, to teach, to lead, to guide. And so my call is to clergy. We mobilize and train and build power with faith leaders on the ground on how to show up in their communities and to be present. Most times when the shootings are happening, it's happening right where a corner church is located. We developed a urban chaplaincy program over a couple years ago. It's a urban chaplaincy crisis response team that we developed to go out to the scene. So we get calls, whether it's from everyday citizens, community residents, EMTs that are arriving to the scene, to inform us of different things that have happened, or if people that's part of our team see it. What we discovered was that oftentimes, of course, in Black communities particularly, we don't want to talk to the police. We don't trust the police, all right? And so we don't talk to the police. We don't really want to talk to the therapists and the counselors right away because you're connected with the police. All the times we don't want to talk to the bishops and apostles and pastors because we really don't know in totality what that all means, particularly if you have not been connected to a local church or been groomed in such a way. But chaplaincy, we found the word chaplaincy is a de-escalator. It de-escalates and it causes people to let their guards down in terms of trusting. And so although it's pastors, practitioners, it may be therapists, everyday citizens that is a part of that are a part of our team, we go under that banner of chaplaincies and responding. With that, we offer a linkage of services and wraparound services. That wasn't initially what we were going to do, but what we found as we were working with victims of violence is that they were in need of housing. So we developed a barrier buster fund, which we desperately still need money for, but a barrier buster fund that helps individuals who are considered frequent flyers to be able to move out of the area or go to a safe place to live. If they are shot and injured, they're off of work, so they need other things to help sustain, whether it's paying their bills or buying food or groceries in the house, connecting them with primary care physicians, because oftentimes when it happens, they don't have primary doctors. So those are some of the services that we kind of focus on in our work. What we have coming up is our Wear Orange Day. It's happening the first Friday in June. Last year, we were fortunate to foster a further relationship with the mayor's office in the city of East St. Louis, and they signed our proclamation honoring that the first Friday of June is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. And so this Friday, June the 2nd, we will be, the first Friday in June, we will be having our Wear Orange Day. So again, just grateful for the space. Thank you, Dr. Monroe, and to everybody. God bless you.
Listen, you guys prophesy that the last time we'll hear, you'll hear in New York. So stay tuned for some great news. All right. Thank you so much, Reverend Rice Barnes from East St. Louis, and great partner. Again, this is faith leaders from across the US, across the Caribbean, really working to find space in our cities. And so like right now, I'm at City Hall. And so bringing together cities along with clergy to give the support, but also giving the opportunity for clergy to lead cities too as well. And as Bishop McCrae said from Orlando, it's time for the community to hear their voice from within community to rise. And we are sharing best practices, because a lot of times faith leaders sometimes don't know exactly what they can do. And we are sharing with you the best models and practices that we see from across the nation. And help. There is no other, again, 300 clergy climbing now. It's a historic day for us. And I want us to take this into view. Now we will go to the mayor of New York City, the mayor that I get to work with for the past 13 years. It's good to have Mayor Eric Adams, who will be on to give us some remarks as well. Mayor Adams, good morning and welcome to the National Faith Leaders Summit.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I'm in the car, so excuse me, en route to several events. One of them is going to be with our amazing Attorney General, who has taken upon this journey of dealing with gun violence head on. She's going to be joining me and the police commissioner on an amazing takedown that she participated in. And I really just want to say thank you to all of the co-participants. I'm glad to co-partner with clergy, this clergy forum, and clergy from around the entire country to support their efforts to assist governments to reduce gun violence. It's a real issue, and you know far too well. You are the modern day weathermen and women of our nation. You see the inclement weather long before it gets on the radar of any governmental entity. You are at the funerals, you have sat in hospital rooms to really minister to family members who are the victims of violence, and not only those who are struck by the actual bullets, but you and I both know that when the bullet leaves the gun, it may hit the physical body, but it rips apart the anatomy of the community. And you have to put those communities back together with your various consultations. So I cannot say thank you enough. I've soldiered with many here in New York City, but across the country, as we have taken upon this charge for far too long. And it appears as though some of the recent Supreme Court rulings, such as the right to carry law, it's just really going to impede our progress. That is how people believe, but I say no to that. I am a firm believer that God is stronger than any gun that we could ever come up against if we remain true and if we remain vigilant on what we are attempting to accomplish. And so, brothers and sisters, it would take a comprehensive approach to dam, as I say, the many rivers that feed gun violence in our country. And it's not only those who carry a gun. It's so important because by the time a young person picks up a gun, the systems have already failed. We must have prevention and intervention. Prevention, I think, are the long-term things that are often ignored, such as what we're doing here in the city around dyslexia screening. If the numbers in your municipality matches the numbers here in New York, 40 to 50% of the men and women in our jail system are dyslexic. And so if we want to stop crimes, we need to stop the failure of educating those who have learning disabilities. 80% of our inmates at Rikers Island, our city jail, 80% of them don't have a high school diploma or equivalency diploma. So some of the actions we are doing upstream is producing the problems we are addressing downstream. And that is why prevention is crucial. But we also must have intervention. Right now, what are we doing right now to deal with crime in our cities? And that is fostering and supporting good, smart, fair, just law enforcement. And we should be on a major recruitment campaign of getting young people that we know that they have the right aptitude and attitude to be law enforcement officers. That is talking about this in our pulpits, our houses of worship, our synagogues, our mosques, our Buddhist temple, Baptist churches, all coming together and being part of the recruitment campaign, because there's a dwindling number, or large number of law enforcement personnel that we're losing across the country, and we should be part of the rallying call of having good, God-fearing young men and women play this awesome role of public safety in our city. I want to take my hat off to the president. President Biden signed an executive order aimed at reducing gun violence across the nation. He has been a president that has really shown real leadership of dealing with gun violence. He came here to visit us here in the city, and he has continued to put the resources where we need it. And we need to really rally behind what he's doing. And I want to thank him for taking concrete action to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, and for working to keep all of America on gun violence. Here in New York City, we have worked with our clergy leadership in collaboration with law enforcement, social services, agencies, and violence interrupters to tackle gun violence and youth violence. Since day one of this administration, we've been working hard to stop gun violence and to keep guns and repeated offenders off our streets. There's a small number of people who have made up their minds that they're going to use guns to create havoc in our communities. And I'm sure you are seeing that in your local municipalities. And I'm really proud that Commissioner Sewell and her team, we're seeing the turning the corner of gun violence. We witnessed a double-digit decrease in homicides, double-digit decrease in shootings, and we recently convened a global gun trafficking summit to address reduce trafficking and disrupt the iron pipeline. We're seeing it in the Caribbean diaspora. We're seeing it in South and Central America, particularly in Mexico. We're seeing far too many of guns that are manufactured here are being spread throughout our entire region. But all of our successes pale next to the deeper need of reaching people before they turn to violence. And that is why we're here today. We need to address the fundamental issues that are leading so many people to despair, and put forth real solutions, real answers on housing, healthcare, mental health support. A major focus, close to 40% of our inmates have mental health issues. 18% have severe mental health issues, and we can't continue to ignore this. And then we must lean into our young people. When you look at the increased number of suicide, increased number of mental health issues, depression, and really the introduction, what I believe, to the legalization of things like marijuana, the fentanyl crisis, the lack of employment, and just really our young people, we must surround them with real opportunities, and that is some of the focus of that we are having here in the city. And so we take this journey seriously. This is something that we believe is our calling, and I could not have asked for a more valiant champion in this area than a longtime friend and person who has counseled me, and including my faith-based leaders, into what we do in our governing practices than Pastor Monroe. So thank you, Pastor, and I thank you for all who have joined us, and I want to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And we also have Attorney General Letitia James, who will be joining you in a moment too as well. Good to see Attorney General. And so both of you will be seeing each other, and both of you are here on the Zoom. So we really truly, I thank both of you for your leadership in New York City. So clergy from around the cities, when we have our Attorney General working with our mayor, working with our faith community, and all of the other social services and care balance teams, that we have appointed as A.T. Mitchell to really help on that front. I think you can find these are models for success. So thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and welcome Attorney General Letitia James.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning to the men and women of God. Thank you so much, the Clergy for Safe Cities, for hosting today's Gun Violence Summit. I want to especially recognize and thank Pastor Guilford Monrose, who is a member of my God Squad, who prays for me and keeps me out of trouble. And if any of you know me, I often find myself in trouble quite a bit. And that's because I believe in, just like our mayor, and thinking outside the box and engaging in innovative ways to address some of the issues that are facing our community. My partnership with the mayor goes back a long time, and today we are joining forces because we have engaged in taking down dangerous criminals and remove guns from our streets and our community. And I know that this organization, Clergy for Safe Cities, has been in existence for over a decade, and you have been busy supporting families and communities impacted by gun violence. I have been with a lot of the men and women who are on this call this morning at funerals. We've held mothers and fathers and grandparents in our arms. We've cried over open caskets, and we recognize that gun violence is an issue that all of us should be focused on, regardless of your political affiliation and or your religious affiliation. It's an issue that we all should be focused on, because we all know the grim statistics, and they aren't just abstract figures. They're real lives and loved ones who are no longer at dinner tables, birthday parties, and holidays, or even at community events like this summit. But we will never give up. All of you here persisted. You redoubled your efforts. You expanded your coalition. You took a holistic approach to bringing partners together and empowering them with vital resources to mobilize strong community support. You work collaboratively to build safe and heavy communities across New York and the nation. And in doing so, your moral leadership and it has been a guiding force and a belief that public safety is a shared responsibility amongst all of us. Your leadership has been pivotal in helping to address this issue. And again, I thank you. I want to thank President Biden for his executive order that he issued just yesterday with regards to the red flag laws, with regards to his efforts to do background checks and to address a lot of the gaping holes that unfortunately exist in our laws in this country. I know that he will be challenged, and I can tell you that as the State Attorney General of New York, I will be defending his action along with other attorney generals around this nation. I'm proud to partner with each and every one of you and to let you know what my office has been doing and what other attorneys general across this nation have been doing. I'm committed to using every tool in my toolbox to fight our most basic right to live free from the fear of gun violence. And my office has engaged in takedowns of individuals who are flooding our streets with not only guns, but with dangerous drugs, including but not limited to opioids and to fentanyl and to other illegal guns. We crack down on online sellers illegally shipping ammunition to New York. We just last week, received an injunction against 10 manufacturers of ghost guns who were shipping these unregistered, unserialized, these weapons of mass destruction, which unfortunately cannot be tracked by law enforcement. And these sellers of this ammunition are parts that can be put together, and individuals can put them together simply by going online and gathering dangerous parts. We've also engaged in a number of gun buybacks. As of today, my office has removed over 4,000 guns from New York communities since 2019. I'm sure all of you know about my efforts with respect to the NRA, which has more to do with the not-for-profit laws, because believe it or not, the NRA is a charitable organization organized under the laws under the state of New York in the late 1800s. And we have been examining and investigating that case, investigating that organization, which unfortunately has not been compliant with the not-for-profit laws in the state of New York. Together with incredible partners like the Clergy for Safe Cities, I will keep up the fight for our right to live peacefully from gun violence. I've been joined with a number of attorney generals across this nation in speaking out and in support of gun control and urging our federal partners to do the same. We've been working very closely, forming a task force, again, along the Eastern Seaboard against individuals who traffic guns along I-95, again, challenging those individuals who take advantage of lax gun laws in states in the South, individuals who traffic guns and who pose a threat to the residents of New York State. I've been defending the state in a number of challenges to our carry permit law. As of right now, there are over 16 lawsuits that have been filed challenging the state's carry permit laws. And we have been successful thus far, but we anticipate that some of these cases will be headed to the United States Supreme Court. So with that, I really want to thank each and every one of you. Again, like the mayor, I believe in prevention, and I've been focusing on creating some boxing rings for individuals some young men who have been urging me to create some boxing rings and after school programs in my beloved Brooklyn. And that's exactly what we will be doing, as well as some basketball leagues. And just talking to young people and not working in a white ivory tower, but being on the streets each and every day to let these young people know that I'm just like them. I come from humble beginnings. I'm no different from any of them. And that if I can do it, that they too can do it. And that all of us must live in peace. And we all have an obligation to keep our community safe. I thank you, Pastor Monrose, and I thank you for all that you do and for all of the individuals who are on this call this morning.
Thank you so much, Attorney General, and we keep on praying for you, and thank you for the work that you're doing for sure. So in New York State, you've heard from the Attorney General, you've heard from the Mayor of New York City, and we're very, again, grateful that all of you have joined. So now we have heard from how cities, again, is working. Now we'll turn our attention to clergy working now with cities, and we'll have Rabbi Creditor. Rabbi Creditor, how are you doing? It seems like we have been in many spaces together over the last couple of weeks, and so we're very grateful for your voice. It will take all of us to be able to end the scourge of gun violence. And I think that even from your community, as you have seen from the Jewish community, gun violence is a disease that affects all communities. And so we're very grateful again to have Rabbis Against Gun Violence to be with us today.
Thank you. Thank you, my brother. It is an incredible thing to be invited into this space, and I want to use my time well. Instead of presuming to be an expert who's leading the efforts, both statistically and in terms of the health epidemic that the gun violence scourge in our nation is, let me simply say that the scriptures teach us, ein bait she'ein sham met. There is no house where there isn't the touch of death because of this terrible, terrible problem that we all face together. And so my role as rabbi of UJA Federation of New York, which is the unified community here in New York, and as the leader of Rabbis Against Gun Violence, a national effort of 1,600 rabbis who want to partner with our neighbors so that we can fulfill the biblical mandate to love each other well. What I want to share is that my work has basically convinced me over and over that I know very, very little. The more we face gun violence as an American problem, the more I see that part of the problem is careless thinking by righteous people. We bring the best of intentions to this work, but rarely do we acknowledge that over half of the gun violence deaths in America are suicides. We just don't want to talk about it. And then when we talk about the less than half, but still terrible number, more than 20,000 images of God bleeding on the floor, needlessly, that a majority of them are handguns, not the assault rifles. And then we end up not talking about the intersection between gun violence and domestic violence, violence against intimate partners. All of this requires incredibly careful thinking. And it requires that we become friends with each other so that we can actually understand the issues that each of our communities face, because gun violence isn't one problem. It's many problems that intersect. And so I want to share just a little bit of wisdom from Jewish text and then hand it back so I can continue listening. I can continue bearing witness We have to be in this together. And I pledge on behalf of the Jewish community that we are ready to do this work together. It's very powerful for me to see out of our mayor's office, Pastor Monroe's, do this incredible work, but he is modeling national leadership. That's what we're called to do. So we're taught in Jewish text to pray for the welfare of the government. For all of the complicated nature of the intersection between faith and politics, we can't duck the call. We are called to pray for the welfare of the government, without which ancient sages 2,000 years ago said, without which neighbors would tear each other apart. And we are watching that happen in American society, and faith has to be the healing. We knew that 2,000 years ago. We know that today. And so I want to share just a little bit of Jewish teaching and bless us all. Here's just a little bit. On Shabbat, the Sabbath, there's actually a rule, a technical rule, that we're not supposed to carry from place to place, from private domain to public domain, because your home should be your cathedral. Your home should be your holiest place. And we should have just the simple safety of our homes and our communal spaces without thinking we need to cross those boundaries. It is beautiful to see what the Sabbath represents. And this is true not only in the Jewish tradition, obviously, but the question then comes, what are you allowed to carry from place to place? And one of the examples, actually, the ancient rabbis talk about is jewelry, something that it's an adornment I wear. I'm not carrying it. It glorifies the human image. So they ask a question which relates to our problem today. What about a sword? What about a weapon? Because as we've seen in display in museums, and we've seen at auction houses and at gun shows, sometimes the design of weapons can be an attempt to create art. But the problem is when you begin to adore the weapon, it becomes something different. It becomes an idol. So the rabbis who deal with the question, what about a gun? They're talking about swords, but we can make it modern. Can you carry a gun from place to place on the Sabbath, given that technical rule? One rabbi says yes, but the vast majority say, of course not. Weapons are not jewelry. They are ugly. There's no question that we need to have a nuanced conversation about the ethical place of self-defense. We don't live in a world yet where it's possible to not have these measures, but we should not worship them. We shouldn't love them. They're not art. They're not jewelry. They might be necessary, but they're not beautiful. So I want to pledge the Jewish community into partnership with this great effort to save our children's lives, to save each other's lives. There should be nothing like a bulletproof backpack for sale. There should be no need. There should be no need for these conversations. But until that blessed day, when we don't have to have these conversations, we're in it. So Pastor Monroe, thank you for inviting me into this space. Bless you all with the work you do in your communities.
Thank you. Thank you for sure. And thank you, Rabbi Creditor, for that lesson. I think as faith leaders, we definitely needed to step back and to hear that message. And we're really grateful for that. So thank you again for that. So we are going to have two more speakers. We're doing good on time. And then we're going to have an open floor with leaders. We'll ask Pastor Edward Hines to come back in that conversation. We're going to be talking to some selected faith leaders from across the country to be able to dialogue and have conversation as to what we've seen and even what is being done in their particular community. So Bishop Beckwith with the Bishops Against Gun Violence is going to come next, and then we'll have Pastor Julie Reimer from Twigs Ministry in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands is going to come after Bishop, and then we'll go to that open floor discussion with faith leaders only. Selected, and then also to some of the cities that is represented. I know Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, we have some representation on. We would love to see you too as well, to talk about what you're doing in your particular area. That'll be good too as well. Thanks again, Rabbi Creditor. Bishop Beckwith.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Monrose. I'm Mark Beckwith. I'm in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, where we're blanketed by 3 feet of snow and without power, but I have access to my phone. And I'm one of the founders of Bishops United Against Gun Violence in the Episcopal Church, also the co-chair of Faith Leaders for Ending Gun Violence, of which Pastor Monrose and Clergy for Safe Cities are an integral part. And we've been working for a year, and to hear what other people have said, our goal is that we can flourish without fear. And one of the ways we want to do that, Faith Leaders for Ending Gun Violence, is first of all to incorporate, which we hope to do in the second quarter of 2023, so that we can begin to create a database that Clergy for Safe Cities has, other entities have, so that pastors can be able to connect with other pastors to learn what's going on, that we can share resources, information, and all the things that we need to do to know to be more effective on the ground in our communities to reduce the scourge of gun violence. We have partners, one of which is Raw Tools. Raw Tools takes guns, breaks them down, and fashions them into garden tools. And there are more and more blacksmiths around the country that are doing this very important work. It is a symbolic event of taking guns and moving them into plowshares, which we certainly have biblical reference for. And then in the course of the breaking them down and making them into garden tools, we hear stories from people who have been afflicted and affected by gun violence. The other partner that's very, very important is Clergy for Safe Cities. We met a year ago at the National Cathedral. Pastor Monrose was there, Pastor Hines was there, Faith Henderson from Clergy for Safe Cities were there. And we've developed this network of clergy from around the country, from the continuum of from progressive to evangelical, everyone in between, to work toward prevention. And we keep hearing that from the other representatives that we've heard this morning. Prevention is so important. Community violence intervention is a growing reality that we need to support, that we need to engage with, to offer the witness that we have as faith leaders for the benefit of our communities and to reducing gun violence. So it's an honor to be with you. I am so grateful for Clergy for Safe Cities, for what Pastor Monrose and others have done to create this developing network. And together we can make an important witness and have a deep impact on the violence that so affects our communities. So thank you for this time.
No, thank you again. Bishop, before you leave, that is a really profound idea about Raw Tools. I don't know if Mark is on or Mike is on from Raw Tools. Is Mike on from Raw Tools? Mike, are you on? But just if you can drill down a little deeper about taking guns and turn them into garden tools, and that idea, I think faith leaders from across the country and even who's on, you can take on that particular piece too as well, because I think that's important to see how that works. So if Mike is not here, we leave that discussion, Bishop, for the conversation, or you want to talk about that a little bit more in terms of
Sure, just that it's a growing symbolic event done in communities. Permit needs to be acquired because fire departments sometimes get worried because you have to bring a forge to take the guns that have been broken down. In many communities, they work very closely with police departments who are very much in support of this, because police departments often are engaged in gun buybacks. And so if you have gun buybacks and you take and break the guns down and then forge them, and it takes a while to do that, people can make the garden implements themselves. So people are engaged in the transformation of weapons of destruction to tools for growth. And then to hear the stories, to offer the prayers. Again, there's a growing network of blacksmiths, people who have forges, who are willing to come to communities, especially to churches. Parking lots are good because there's asphalt. You can set a forge up on top of an asphalt. You can't bring them inside. And they're powerful witnesses to the work that we are doing. So we can send more information about Raw Tools to Clergy for Safe Cities and have that connection made for people who are interested.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Ronald Bland from Denver, you want to come in? Could we see if we get Ronald? Ronald, are you available to talk right now from Denver? I want to see if we can add him in very quickly. Yeah, how are you, sir? You're muted. I can't hear you. What you got?
All right, how about now?
Yeah. So
Okay.
How are you? Good to see you again.
Yeah.
So just give us a 90-second talk about your experience with raw tools and how you took guns and turned them into garden tools in Denver.
Yeah, so we ended up doing close to 18 buybacks last year. And we were able, when I did the first one, I was going with the assumption it was going to be like the old school back in the 80s kind of buybacks. It was not. It was definitely something that was for the community, needed to be in the community. And so with that, we were able to get close to 400 guns off of the street last year. These are everything from a handgun to a fully automatic rifles. And so now we have a program within Denver called Safe Haven. And so that is under Raw Tools. We have permission to work as Raw Tools now. And so now we are actually working with outreach to be able to get those guns off the street throughout the year, as well as the buybacks. And we already have 4 buybacks scheduled for Denver, and we will be working on other ones citywide.
Right. And I think thank you for that. That's a great, powerful tool too as well. So faith leaders, we're gonna put our contact information either through the city here in New York or Clergy for Safe Cities. The contact information should be in the chat. You can reach out. And thank you so much for sharing that, Ronald. Really powerful stuff. Yeah, we appreciate you. So it gives you as faith leaders some ideas of some of the things that you can actually work on too as well, as you look at how you can faithfully serve within your particular context and communities. Pastor Reimer from St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Gilmore Rose, for the opportunity to share. I've been so encouraged just listening to everyone, and the work that they do. And thank you for, investing in our families of gun violence. I am the pastor of the Worship Center of Twigs Ministry, Church of God 7-Day on the island of St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. And I am really happy to share the work that we're doing here under the banner of outreach. As many have said today, sometimes our families will not want to come out to, church per se, but putting ourselves out there in the community is very valuable and, influential, helpful to them. And through our outreach ministries, we have been undergoing the aspect of outreach through our dimension of Tuesdays for Tuesday of the month for gun violence families and survivors of gun violence. What we have as our tagline is the process through the lens of faith and trust. And we do that through the 4 components and 4 walls of providing the support, building faith, offering comfort, and ministering peace. And what we do every second Tuesday of the month, we have an inspirational hour where we celebrate the families, whether they're celebrating birthdays, because we recognize that a lot of times that these families are alone and they're not, they don't have people who can really celebrate events with them. So we open our doors. We're open all the time. Let me just make that known. We're open all the time, but Tuesdays of the month, we open our doors so they can come to our facility and also share with us on a Zoom inspirational hour where we minister to their hearts. We also co-partner and collaborate with Pastor Eileen Kennelly from Detroit, Michigan. We interact with families of gun violence and violence through domestic abuse. And that does is from my passion stirred up from having personally been involved and engaged with my sister-in-law who lost her daughter and her daughter's husband in one shooting, and a few months later lost her other daughter's husband through another shooting. And another member came up and that happened in that time. where one of her three daughters was stabbed and one succumbed and was killed through stabbing as a young child. Another man of God who was in our midst was on phone call and said that they fought his son. So we had to get involved as a ministry and as individuals to make sure that our church families were comforted throughout the process, and thus through the process through the faith, through the lens of faith and trust came. Also engage in doing many funerals for victims' families of gun violence, and we have also answered the call for the government who are looking for clergy to do the funerals for these individuals. We are extending, and that's why I'm excited about this part of our outreach in doing the children summer program, because what I've recognized is the children of those families are the ones, as I heard earlier, talking about prevention. They're suffering, they are going through traumatic experiences, and so we do have a retired teacher who we have going to be working with those children, and they can come to the facilities and be able to get guidance. We have a opening for our mothers in particular every first Saturday of the month, where we do empowerment, because being out there and hearing the cries, especially yesterday, we were really touched by a young woman who came on one of our inspirational hours yesterday, who said, I am so angry, I am so hurt. And so we have opened our doors to meet needs, and we come in sessions and trainings, and not just on the spiritual aspect, but being a former banker myself, we open the doors to help them with the financial aspects of life, how to get back on their feet, particularly if the person who they lost was probably the breadwinner. So we offer the trainings and the support through our ministries. And we pray by the help of God and the collaboration with the great team that to today, we can continue to do so and extend our services to where it is needed. And I just want to say thank you, Pastor Gill, for the opportunity. When I hear the call this morning, where's the church or where's the people? Please here in the beautiful island of St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, is available and willing to work through the process, through the place of faith and trust. Bless you and thank you.
Thank you so much for standing in the gap, for sure. One of my greatest achievements, I think, so far has been really working on the idea and the bill to create the Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the Virgin Islands. Was passed and signed by Governor Bryant. So kudos to my colleagues who worked in my hometown, Dr. Reverend Coram, and also to former Senator Blyden as well. So thank you all for that as well. Do we have Mr. Antonio from the Virgin Islands office on? If he's here, I would like to bring him to say thank you so much, Pastor Julie. Appreciate it. I think everyone else, all of the individuals who's putting their hands up, you can put your hands down. We're not taking any unsolicited questions today. Everyone is already pre-assigned to be in conversation. Do we have, okay, so he's not there. Alexi is going to come. He's going to be our last speaker before we go into our open-end discussion. Alexi, hey, it's good to see you. And your wisdom, your advice, your counsel to us is very important to really do a national framework. And before I go here, I want to say, if we can please put the link for Clergy for Safe Cities in. It's a national umbrella of faith communities. You don't have to switch and change what you're doing in your local communities. That's fine. We are going to continue to partner with clergy from across the country, and then also to help cities as well, to be able to reach out to your local clergy as well. So again, we will put the link in Clergy for Safe Cities. Someone from that group will reach out to you. My information from City Hall, again, if you represent a state, a city, a country, and you would like us to really talk through some of the things that we're doing, that's fine. The mental health summit tomorrow is coming up if you're in New York City. If you're locally in Brooklyn, you can join the 6-7 Precinct Clergy Council, the God Squad. If you're in Colorado, if you're in the Virgin Islands, if you are in DC, if you're in Orlando, we have people that we can connect. Also, we have Pastor Harrison on. who could probably join us in a few. So again, we have great resource. The reason that we're coming together is because we believe that there needs to be a resurgence of religious leaders taking, again, the space in gun violence. We have a specific role to play to ending gun violence in America. And I'm glad to see there's still 281 of us on, even at 12 o'clock. Why? Because this is the most powerful moment in America. There is no other place in America that you have 315 faith leaders talking about ways to end gun violence, but today. So the moments that you spend now is going to be helpful, that we don't have to spend those times in funeral homes and different places. We are seeing models that are working. And thank you so much, Alexi, and Kingdom Mission Society for your connection and for your work.
Thank you, Pastor Monrose. It's so good to be with you, esteemed clergy of various backgrounds and from all over the country. It's really an honor. And I want to take a moment to thank Pastor Monrose for his magnificent leadership in the city of New York, really pushing faith into the conversations at all levels. And that kind of leadership, you have our prayers, you have our thanks. We'll continue to pray for you. And just noting the electeds from New York, the mayor, Mayor Adams, and his leadership, the Attorney General and her leadership, both public servants who get faith, which is a really important thing in the world today. I'm Alexi with Kingdom Mission Society. One of our focuses is what you see here, the convening of clergy of various backgrounds for meaningful change that we know impacts our communities. One of the things that we've done is we've worked quite regularly with Everytown for gun safety, also with March for Our Lives, the whole GVP movement. And what I can say from my travels just briefly is there's a need for organizing. There's a need for collaboration. So if you like what you're seeing in New York and you think, oh Lord, we could do that wherever I live, reach out to Pastor Monrose, because I think there's a need for the local organizing at this level, also for the national organizing. I just briefly to talk about the leadership of President Biden, this announcement yesterday on the executive order, he's clarifying the number of background checks on gun sales by clarifying the definition of what it means to be engaged in the business of selling firearms. He'll be helping to close the gun seller loophole. The next step is for the Attorney General of the United States and ATF to take the president's directive and turn it into action. So we will be seeing a new rulemaking process. Look out for that. These things can seem like minutia, but this is where the gun industry profits, in the minutia, in the details, on how do we actually have a system that keeps everyone safe. We need a moral revolution in the country. You're part of that. Just imagine all the people you minister to, they're looking for change. Faith can be the change, prayerfully, that we need for the sort of gun laws that are necessary for America. We're the only country in the world at this size that has this many gun deaths. We know that this can change. You're part of that change. It's great to partner with Clergy for Safe Cities, Pastor Monrose, and the great work happening in New York. And I know there's great work happening everywhere, but I think just to highlight the New York example, how can we take that at this noon hour and prayerfully see what would that look like to work with other people, not just in our silos, but people that aren't at the table, in order to have meaningful change, because we can come together around this need to reduce gun violence in our cities and our neighborhoods. Thank you, Pastor Monrose.
Thank you so much for that. I just got a note from Jaden, a 17-year-old from Chaplain Aisha, who said that Jaden wants to do a Youth for Safe Cities. So that's amazing. So Jaden, we thank you for listening and to being here, and you truly are the future of our, thank you, of what we do here as well. Thank you so much, Alexi. Keep us posted on the national front, and we're going to continue to do the work for sure. Thank you so much. All right, so if we can, do we have any from the different cities? We have anyone from Milwaukee? If the folks from Milwaukee can raise their hand. If you're representing a city, if you could put up your hand raise sign, we want to bring you to the stage right now. We want to get Bishop Hugh Nelson on Buffalo. Let's get, if you're representing a city, Pastor Delante from DC is on. Milwaukee is on. Pastor, thank you so much. Could you raise your hand if you have any? Could you bring Delante on the stage, please? Pastor Delante. Could we bring Bishop Nelson in too as well?
Yeah, Reverend Tatum is on from Texas.
All right, Reverend Tatum on from Texas. Could you bring him to the stage too as well? Do we have Cincinnati Bishop Tate? Where is Bishop Nelson? All right, so Pastor, let me make sure that I'm saying this correct. Bill Loris. Pastor, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
And how are you? Tell us about, how the work that you're doing in Milwaukee. We'll hear from Pastor Delante. Bishop Nelson is going to speak to as well, as part of the founding members of the God Squad and Clergy for Safe Cities. We have Pastor Delante, who's a co-founder and co-convener of Clergy for Safe Cities. You can bring Pastor Hines on the stage too as well. So Pastor, in Milwaukee, tell us exactly what you've seen and what has been working and what type of support and help you need from us here from Clergy for Safe Cities.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I am Pastor Valoris Mann with the City of Milwaukee. I am the Salvation Army Chaplain Director for Milwaukee County, and we are in partnership with our local Milwaukee Police Department, which was formed 7 years ago by their call to have faith leaders come together to be able to respond to help the families and the neighborhoods that were experiencing the rise in gun violence. And since 7 years ago, it hasn't gotten any better. So we have a group of volunteers. I have 46 chaplains, and we're made of different faith organizations and denominations that we, when we receive a call from the police department for traumatic situations, homicides, suicides, drug overdoses, infant deaths, things like that, we respond to provide emotional and spiritual support. Not only do we do that, but we also try to help build the relationship between our city and the Milwaukee Police Department. I always describe it where, since they were the ones that called for us, we are their hearts and their hugs to help connect the community back to them, and also build confidence back in not only just the police department, but also our social services that kind of let the people down too as well over the years. So we try to be the liaisons in many different aspects, but we provide emotional and spiritual care. We also are there for the prayer visuals, for the funerals, and anything that the family needs in order to help heal. We're definitely there for the children who witness a lot of this, to help them. And this year I'm going to be connecting them to our camps and a lot of the families, so they can see outside of the city and be able to help them to heal. So that's the work we do here as chaplains. And I'm so great to hear that there's other chaplain organizations that partner with their city, because I was always saying we were the only one in the country.
No. You have a lot of support. All of us are here.
So, and I'm so great. I mean, I'm glad, because I want people to partner with me, because I need encouragement on how to help build, because, you figure most of the chaplains are older chaplains. We're like 40 and older, but we need the young people, because they need to be able to relate to their own that's out here in the streets. And so I don't want to, burn them out. I want to know how to recruit, how to get volunteers to stay engaged and to stay encouraged in this work. And also to know how to connect to other organizations to be able to get the family the assistance that they need, and let them know you're not alone. I think every city feels that they're an island, but I know that there's others out there, and I thank God for each and every one of you, because it is a hard work to, be on the floor with someone holding their baby that just died, or, their son, their daughter. So, it pulls on your heart, and you want to do so much, but there's only so much within Salvation Army I can do. But if I can pass them off to you guys to do more, I am just so for it.
Yeah, thank you. Again, the reason we call it recognition and resources, because a lot of times we work in isolation. Whether you work in Milwaukee or Orlando or DC or the different places in Brooklyn, you feel like you are alone as you're doing that work. Clergy for Safe Cities and the work that we do between clergy and cities is to be able to support, to be able to help to see all the work that we're doing. Let's go to the nation capital, Pastor Delante. What's going on over there, brother?
Hey, peace. Hey, everybody. It's good to be with you. My name is Pastor Delante Golston. I pastor Peace Fellowship Church in Ward 7 here in Washington, D.C., and one of the co-conveners of Peace Walks D.C., which is a coalition of 40-plus churches, congregations, mosques, synagogues, and community advocates who are just committed to ending police and community violence. I'm grateful to be here because we just need to encourage each other. I got a call from a partner at the Boys and Girls Club this week, connecting one of our young people who was a victim of sexual assault. I appreciate the rabbi mentioning the various types of assault that we encounter. And I just want to share the encouragement. When I called one of our partners, she said, Pastor, she was quoting scripture to me, and she said, Pastor, don't be weary in doing what is good, for in due season you'll reap if you don't give up. And so I just want to encourage each and every one of us. I know it's hard. I know that the work is grueling and taxing. I know that trauma is real. But I just believe that when the people of God, when we come together and we're all on one accord. I know we got tongue talking folks who are coming in a Honda, amen. But when we're all on one accord, when we're all on one accord, I'm just believing God. That we'll see a change. I certainly am grateful also to be partnering with our youth and young adults here in the city. One of our major partners is IDEA Public Charter High School that has a construction program and a coding program for our high school age students. And we're also, we just started partnering with a couple of rites of passage programs here in the city to really start working with our young people at an earlier age. Our shooters are now 12 and 13 here in DC. They're carrying multiple magazine guns with a lot of firepower. And because our shooters are getting younger and younger, we just see that our intervention efforts have to begin younger and younger. And so we're partnering with Union Temple Baptist Church here in Ward 8, and also with Trinity UCC in Chicago, looking at their curriculum to develop a more broad-based rites of passage program that can really teach our kids Christ, culture, and community over the course of the coming year. We just believe that intervention and prevention has to happen sooner, that our young ones at 7 and 8 need to know their trauma triggers, that our teachers need to know their trauma triggers. We as pastors need to know our trauma triggers and be emotionally healthy in our work.
Right. True.
We certainly do believe in partnering with law enforcement when necessary, but I just believe that the church is the answer, that when the people of God come together, that we can really see a mighty move. So here to serve, glad to be able to join and partner with each of you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. And that's so important to know too as well. We're going to launch a poll. So as we talk to Bishop Nelson, you'll see the poll come up. You can just respond to it. It's on your screen right now. The question is, do you have a minimum of 5 active clergy in your city to participate in a Clergy for Safe Cities initiative? What that means is that we are looking to be able to help build capacity to all of you. If you have, you believe that you have at least 5 active clergy in your city. And again, we want to make sure that the resources that's available, Alexi talked about it today, that it could be available to you. And then also too, if your city itself is given some pushback, again, we have the mayor, the attorney general, Mayor Adams, Attorney General Tish James, who consistently know the work and the benefit of seeing faith leaders working along with cities. And so therefore we want to do that. If you want specific training too as well, in the God Squad model, 10-point coalition happening in Indiana, you can also reach out to as well to help you, Reverend Loretta Bonds in East St. Louis as well, chaplaincy. So there's a lot of resources on the table here. Bishop Nelson is going to talk to us about how he is changing the face and the trajectory of Brownsville through the church and the project we're working on, and showing how gun violence, of course, has many different areas that we can work from. And one of the areas that he's working from is providing housing. Bishop Nelson.
Thank you, Pastor Monrose, and greetings to all our brothers and sisters. We're thankful that you have taken this time to share around this important subject of gun violence. I'm pleased to be a part of the God Squad and the local work that's happening right here. Well, actually, over 14 years ago, a group of pastors, we just talking about the possibilities of how can we make an impact in community beyond the sanctuary. And so out of that conversation, we began to look at the issue of housing, because we recognize that gun violence is not a one-dimensional issue. And so there are many feeder factors that literally undergirds or feeds into the use or the abuse of guns. And so some years ago, we, as a local church, and I'm the lead pastor for the Church of God of East Flatbush, now Ebenezer Urban Ministry Center. We were already our space has already been filled out, and we were looking at purchasing a new space. And so we purchased 2 city blocks. And as I shared with our leaders, how can we make an impact beyond just gathering for worship? And how can we address the issue of gun violence? And so to make a long story short, we purchased 2 city blocks, and we made the need of the community the focus of our development. So instead of focusing on building a sanctuary, we focus on building affordable housing with the church embedded in the building. So presently, you may, let's see if we're in the process of moving into our new space, which is 43,000 square footage and 530 apartments above. So you may be able to see this. And this was, of course, with the support of our electives as well. So this shows you the frontage of the church with a terrace above, but the idea of providing housing, because housing is a pivotal part of the disruption that oftentimes feeds criminal activities. So what I encourage pastors today, if you're in the process of expansion or development of your space, think beyond just your sanctuary. Think beyond just what do we provide for our members, and instead address at least 1 or 2 community issues. And I've discovered that since we have moved in this direction, we're now having a greater community impact than before. So this is just a short encouragement that wherever you are, whatever city you're in, and especially if you're in a highly urbanly developed area, to pay rent or mortgage for a space you use 2 or 3 times a week, in my mind, there's so much more that we can do. So just a brief encouragement. And thank you, Pastor Monrose.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you as well. That was powerful. We want to keep in time. We want to end by 12:45. So if you have, we're going to go to, first of all, we're going to go to some questions on just faith leaders first. If you are leading the congregation, whatever faith it is, and you've heard something and you would like some resources, some questioning, let's talk about that. But before we do so, Robin, could you come on and talk through 2 things that we would want you to help us with as we look at how we can be powerful moving forward. I think that our goal is to have us to be at a place where from the White House, from City Hall to the White House, that we can, again, give America an opportunity to see that we have faith leaders who is willing, able, there are models that have been working to be able to help stymie this idea of of crime. But we have two things that we want to share with you. So Robin Yates is going to come in. She's going to mention it, and then we're going to move to questions to, first of all, to faith leaders alone, in terms of what you've seen. If there's something that we can help you with, we want to do that, and we want to end at 12:45 to release all of you back to your day. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robin.
So, hello, everybody. I am just honored to have been able to work with the God Squad over the last 2 years, and so proud to hear that there's so much commonality in terms of, even starting with, was it Bishop McRae that said, developing plans, not just protesting. We just finished our strategic plan at God Squad, and part of what we've come to is how do we codify all this goodness, all the good things that we do? And that's why, if you saw in the chat that I put there, we are capturing in the chat all of your comments and your questions, so we can continue to evolve this model to share with other cities what we're doing that works, what to look out for, what to not do. One of the things, I'll ask Morgan to bring up the chart that I wanted to just capture for you guys, is that this summit is an important step in enhancing the model. So it's not just let's get online and make sure we all still care about the same things. We know that, but let's hear what's working, what's not, what areas we're being blind to or need to pay more attention to. So in our strategic plan, we asked ourselves, can we actually expand our reach by implementing this clergy-led model in 7 new cities? It could be here in New York, it could be in other places. You heard we're in partnership with Rochester already. We're looking at Albany, and we're going to be helping out in Cincinnati as well. And what we learned from this summit, and the reason I say select work groups, is going to be used. It's not just to hear our own voices, but it's to make change possible. And so one of the ways that you can help and join is we're going to be doing a safe summer planning group. We all know that summer is a wonderful yet terrible season when it comes to gun violence. So how do we get ahead of that? So if any of you would like to join this planning group to talk about specifically how do we get the right things in place before summer is upon us, so we can be more effective than last year and the year before and continue to make progress, we'd love to have you. If you know of other communities or cities that should have a clergy-led model as a part of how they're addressing gun violence, let us know, and let's see how we as a community can support them. As a part of this program, we're going to look to have mentors and advisors for any new city that is looking to put a God Squad or a clergy-led model in place. So you can see there on the bottom there, continue to provide your insight of what's working in your community, from boxing to arts to trade being taught in the community, in the churches themselves. There are a lot of great ideas floating around. How to make them real, how to plan for them is the part that will make us all more effective together versus overwhelming us on this very big challenge that we've taken on. So Pastor Monrose, if there's anything else you'd like me to cover, please let me know, but I am so thrilled to see some of this planning get done. And if there are others that need help in their planning, I'll put my contact information in there. Please let us know.
Well, thank you so much, Robin, for that. And we're giving real help to all of you faith leaders that we don't want to do this work alone. We have specific models. Again, we have the God Squad model that Pastor Hines can respond to. If there's any questions, we have the 10-point coalition in Indiana. We have many different models. If you want to do work around housing, we have enough resources, and we want to be able to be the ones who are helping connect. And if you're part of a city too as well, to be able to help you connect with your city, all right? So good. So Isaac Opong from Canada, you want to ask a question, Isaac? Oh, hey, Prophet, how are you? Sorry, your name is changed. So could you unmute yourself? Could we get him unmuted? He had a very powerful gun violence event in Brooklyn on Friday. Yeah. You just need to change your name, but you're not Isaac Opong. But go right ahead.
It's an honor to be here, and I extend my great gratitude to all the great men of God and Pastor Maro. Thank you very much for the effort you are putting in. I represent the United Nations for Canada and North America, and I have been dealing with the gun violence. Recently, I had a young guy who came to my office and he wanted to talk to me. So he just stood up and said, "Man of God, check this." So he opened his dressed and I saw a gun. And he said, I'm very angry. I said, why? Carlton, talk to me, CJ. He said, I'm very angry. I came from the prisons and I've been around looking for work. And all I do, applying for job, and they tell me that because of my record, I can't get anything. Now I come to church. I love the church. I love God. But I am blocked. I can't do anything. So why do I put my gun down? So I had some meetings with the ministers, and this Saturday and this coming Sunday, the Minister of Health and Youth is coming to the church to meet the youth. My question to all is, after we collect the guns from these young men who have records on them, can we implement a certain type of supervision waiver that will give them opportunity to integrate back into finding work for themselves? Because if we clear them from the street, we take the guns from them and they cannot be employed, how then do they start their life? And what are the systems and the programs that can be able to help them to remove the stigma from them, to be able to join back the society and carry their assignment? Because most of them, even in prison, have careers. What are they doing? Is there any programs that we have for them?
Yeah, thank you so much. And that's a question for all of us. I think for us is that we will help you dream with you to change laws in Canada. We can definitely work on that. I know in New York City, Senator Myrie was working on a bill. If not, there's the check the box bill, I think, in some states in New York City, I mean, in the US, that you shouldn't ask, employees should not ask about records. And so let me research that a little bit more and let me get back to you on that as well, okay? But I think that you definitely can work on that. All right, but I don't have the right response for that, but I think that what I want to say to you is that as faith leaders, we can definitely work on something to that sort, okay? So we'll get back to you on that. All right, so thank you for that, Prophet Danso. All right, so any other faith leaders? We're not taking any comments on jobs. Any other faith leaders who leads an organization or leads a nonprofit organization or leads a ministry has a question? You could raise your hand. I also want to mention while we're waiting for that, if you would like to join us in Washington, D.C., Reverend Terry Lee is celebrating another milestone of years in the White House prayer. That is on May the 20th. So all of you, of course, we can all need prayer. We all need prayer in the city, in this community, in this country. So join us for that information. If you send the information to one of the pastors, if you set the information to info@clergy4safe cities, we will send you the information as well. All right, Reverend Michael Link, you have a question, and again, we're taking faith leaders questions, okay? Faith leaders questions. Go ahead, Reverend Michael Link. Yes. Caleb, if you're a pastor or what, please put your title so I can call on you. I need to identify everyone. Thank you so much. Question, sir.
Grace and peace to you, Pastor Monrose. So I'll try to keep it brief. I am CEO and founder of Be Wise Incorporated, and I lead a social impact initiative, which is Be Wise NYC. We are presently on the ground in the Bronx, New York, working with high risk and at-risk youth. And we are trying to build capacity to work with returning citizens as well that are now trying to reacclimate back into the community. One of the biggest issues I have, and the question that I see circulating amongst small grassroots organizations, is that we are in desperate need of a total revamp of how procurement and funding is distributed to agencies. We have several.
Oops, sorry about that. Could you unmute yourself again?
Yeah, we have several contracts with the city, and we know that there was a transition of leadership and so on and so forth, but being able to pay my staff to be on the ground to work with these youth consistently is a problem when we can only get payments issued on a 30-day.
Yeah, got you.
It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. And then, if we get an advance, we have to pay that advance back to whoever the subcontracting agency is, such as a United Way of NYC, so on and so forth. And now that decreases the spend down on a month-to-month basis. So now we are in
got you.
April.
Understand. Yeah. Understood.
That's
Understood.
my question and concern.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes left. Understood. Thank you for that. Okay, so what I was saying in brief is that use this opportunity to connect. Don't just have this conversation, but we give you a preview of what people are doing, so you have an idea of what resources that we have. The name of our Faith Leader Summit is Resources and Recognition for the Resurgence of the Religious Leader, so that we can help you. I'm sure that you can reach out to Pastor Hines. He will tell you all about procurement. I know in New York City we have done $4 billion up front and trying to pay off backlogs of bills. So that we can definitely help you on that. But use the resources in the room as you see what is happening, so that you can connect and we can connect you again. So I'm going to put my information in the chat again for my email at City Hall, and then also too, you'll also get the information for Clergy for Safe Cities. That's going to be dropped into the chat right now. I'll ask all of you to join Clergy for Safe Cities, so that those of you can get that information on an ongoing situation. So Perkins, Kayla Perkins, let me know your title, then I'm going to pass to Zach, and then we close off with Reverend Diane. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Hi, thank you so much, Pastor Gill. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. It's an honor to be on the call today. So my name is J. Caleb Perkins. I'm the CEO and founder of Remedy Network based in New York. We're a social advocacy organization that promotes dialogue and advocacy around mental health and justice reform. And my question very succinctly is, we work with a lot of millennials and young professionals that come to our meetings, our programming. What is one way that we can better engage them in this conversation around gun violence?
Yeah, so I think that number one, millennials need to recognize their response is also needed. I have a group of millennials within my denomination, and I sent them a note yesterday. I said, listen, I'm sending you this information. Here's where we're doing today on gun violence, work on mental health. If you have any interest, let me know. One of our young attorneys, she responded and said, you know what, this is very interesting to me. I'm touched by this. So we have to give them space, or they have to give themselves space to be thought thinkers on this subject too as well, and figure out from them what do they want to contribute to this conversation. And I think that that's what's needed. So ask them what they would like to contribute and have them organize themselves, and then we can come in and we can support them for sure moving forward. So thank you for that. Pastor Zach, question?
Yeah, just quick comment related to the raw tools in New York. If you want to find out more about how we can help, the big thing that needs to happen is that the NYPD and the DAs need to change how the disposal procedures work. I'm talking to Mike from Raw Tools. That's been the biggest hiccup in most major cities. Is the gun buyback program. So we need the city, we need the state to change the way that the disposal procedure works, because there needs to be oversight provided by the NYPD in those buyback programs. So there's really opportunity to connect some really great opportunities for the raw tools and things like Grow NYC, where we can actually get some of these guns turned into gardening tools that can be put into community gardens in public spaces in New York. But we need the NYPD and the DA's office to move the needle on how the disposal procedure works. So if you want to find out more about how to help that, we need to make sure that we're in contact with the NYPD and the DA's office. Yeah,
that's something powerful too as well. I'm definitely looking into that as well. I think it's a good opportunity to be able to work on that. So faith leaders across the country, if you've never heard about Raw Tools before, here's an opportunity that you can pull in. Sorry about that. If you can just give me 5 more minutes, we want to end at 12:50. We want to apologize for being over for 5 minutes. Let me take Reverend Diane, and Reverend Manissimo will be the last person. Reverend Diane.
All right, peace and blessings. Pastor Monroe's, we've been traveling this road a long time, and in that I'm in charge of Healing Justice Village. under Emerald Gardner with We Can't Breathe, and also in respect to Love and Spirit International Prison Ministries. There is a lot of information that's been placed on the chat, and I was wondering how can we compile all that information to get out to us in the community, because it's necessary for us. And I don't know, it's a lot of work for you all.
Thank you all. Thank you for that. Yeah, we can definitely pull that in for sure to you. Our team, this is a recording. We will release the recording on YouTube so you can go back in and hear it as well. You won't get the chat, but we can pull the chat together and really share the information. I want to put this link in right now. There's 222 of you on right this minute. I want you to pay attention to this link that is going to be in the chat right now. So don't put any other link in the chat. The link that we're going to put in the chat right this minute, give us 3 minutes, is to join us for Clergy for Safe Cities. That link is the only link that we want in the chat right now, so that you can see that link and you can join us. Reverend Massimo, you have the last word. Quickly.
Okay, very good. So thank you very much for being here. It was a very good pleasure. I want just to inform the resource that the Church of Scientology has available for everybody. First of all, we have a community center on 125th Street in Harlem, and we have a several space. The biggest is 250 seats with a professional audio-video system, and we have a smaller place that we can make available for the community free of charge.
Thank you.
The second things, and
what is your question, sir? Question? We have to. What is your question?
I'm sorry, I'm just come back. I didn't know that was a question.
Question?
Sorry.
Yeah. We're trying to close. We're trying to get question. You have a question. You have resources. You have a space in Manhattan. We get that. What other resources do you have very quickly so we can?
Very fast. We develop social reform campaigns that today we are implementing all over the world. We are reaching about 200 million people every year on drug education, human rights education, moral values, non-religion, and today are the biggest not governmental campaign in the world, and we make available to everybody in 17 languages, and all the material educational are free of charge.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. Thank you all, faith leaders from across the country. I would say that we give ourselves a round of applause. We had 315 who were on. This surely is a record for us. We thank all of you for joining. I want you to understand and know that with the largest collaboration of clergy working to end gun violence in America, our theme this year is resources and recognition, the resurgence of the religious leader. Because I think that from the White House should also recognize that we have clergy who are really interested in helping the cities to be safe. I spoke to Pastor J. Gooden last night, and he was saying that every city should be safe. Clergy want safe cities, and that's what we are saying. And so our ultimate prayer and our goal is to exist without violence in our communities. Our ultimate prayer and goal is to make sure that we have the tools necessary. We strongly believe that we can end gun violence in America. All it takes is faith to do it. I think that we have the tools. We have the tested models that have worked in many areas. And what we need now is you. We need everyone to have a concerted effort. And please do tell your colleagues and friends, especially if you took the poll. Could we have a response on the poll question real quickly? Morgan, what did the poll say? The poll says that there were 81% of you who said that you have a minimum of 5 active clergy in your city to participate in a clergy for Safe City initiative. And that's important, that's powerful. That means to say that there are some of you right now who for sure has the ability to be able to connect with other faith leaders. So for us, it doesn't matter what model that you choose from. You can choose different models. There's so many different things, but there's so many training opportunities for faith leaders to really get together and be involved in ending gun violence. So really want to thank our partners today. We want to thank the Mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, and the Office of Faith-Based Initiative. We want to thank the 6-7 Precinct Clergy Council, the God Squad, for their support. We want to thank faith leaders for ending gun violence. Thank those, Reverend Sharpton, for speaking to us today, Attorney General Tish James, Reverend Lightfoot, Pastor Marcus McCrae, those Bishop McCrae, Bishop McCoy, Pastor McCoy, Reverend Larita Rice Bonds, Rabbi Creditor, Bishop Beckwood, Pastor Julie Reimer. We have our brother Alexi Lanskin from Mission Kingdom Society. Thank you, Pastor Stephen Marshall, for connecting us and arranging for Reverend Sharpton to be on. Thank you all for those on the back end of the team at Clergy for Safe Cities and all of the different offices who make it possible. Thank you all again for the work that you do. We are so grateful to all of you. We can end gun violence in America. And I am really delighted and happy and glad to see all of you connected. Again, our contact information will be posted in the chat. We will leave the room open for a moment so that you can capture as much information as possible. And we are going to reach out to all of you and give you the next steps. If you want to join the working group, you can please let us know. The information is in the chat too as well. And thank you all and have a blessed and a wonderful day. Thank you all and God blessings to all of you.